Good morning, everyone. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and welcome to my morning show where we talk all things Magic the Gathering. Oh, you want to be part of the conversation? We do Q&A and Magic discussion. So you better believe if you want to be part of that discussion, you want to be here. And the second part of the show, we do Decklist review, where if you've got a 75, you need some feedback on both from myself and the community, we can also do that for you. So brew up a cup of coffee so we can brew up that magic. It's Coffee and MTG for December 31st of 2020. We are closing the year of 2020. My God, this was a turbulent year. If you survived 2020 in the MTG community, you absolutely should give yourself a pat on the back. If you're still here, if you didn't dump yourself to Hearthstone or something like that, welcome. Good morning, Niels Nielsen. And so good morning to everybody. We're gonna have a recap, I think, a recap of 2020. What on earth did we get through? What did we have to put up with? Because it was just an absolute shit show of a year for Magic the Gathering in all formats, in Standard, in Pioneer, in Modern. Things were going up and down. We're going to do, I think, a recap of the year of everything that we have to go through. So, good morning, Ugly Hydra. Yes, not quite first. Niels Nielsen beat you. Sorry, Ugly Hydra. Niels Nielsen is first. Torborg, good morning. Happy freaking New Year. Is it a new year for anybody right now? Is anyone like 13 hours ahead? Maybe some people in Australia or something? Charlie's PlayStation. It was a turbulent year. Oh, was Oko legal in 2020? When was the banning of Oko? Uro was 2020. Well, Uro was a big component of 2020. Some people thought it was going to be Astrolabe. Hey, in retrospect, really, what was the offender? If we could go back. Remember, one of these cards was gonna get banned. Oh, hold on, I gotta share my screen. Do we remember that like one of these cards were gonna get banned? Arkham's Astrolabe or Uro? Do you think they picked the right one? Did banning this card, did that do shit? Really? Did it do anything? It did. Like the people were like, well, if you ban Arkham's Astrolabe, they can't possibly cast Uro anymore. How are they going to have the mana? They couldn't possibly be a 3-color control deck anymore. How are they going to fix their mana? It's just not possible. How are they going to do it? In retrospect, it didn't do anything. It basically, without Arkham's Astrolabe, the decks had to remove Ice Fang Quaddle or whatever. Like that's it. It was like hardly even a dent in the snow decks. So that was one aspect of 2020, is that the snow decks were like taking over. I will admit, we don't see the Urza decks anymore. So the Urza decks, they're gone at the moment. They couldn't find it after Oko got banned, after Mox Opal got banned, after Arkham's Astrolabe got banned. Maybe that was enough bannings that now Urza was brought down to a fair level. We don't see much Urza anymore in comparison to like Uro decks, but I think in retrospect, this was probably not the card. This was probably not. It was a highly debated issue. You could definitely have, I believe that if you banned Arkham's Astrolabe, you'd have to force these control decks to go to narrower colors, or there would be a real cost to going 3 or 4 colors. Obviously, as time has gone on, it doesn't even matter. They're playing Omnath like it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even easy clap. Just have go 4 colors and run the tables with Uro and Omnath. No problem. The banning of Arkham's Astrolabe did not phase the Uro decks, period, at all. It was just as easy for them to get their Mystic Sanctuaries, everything. It didn't matter. It actually did not matter in the grand scheme of things. But that was one component to one interesting thing that happened in the year of 2020. We saw the banning of Arkham's Astrolabe, which is already a card that was banned in Pauper and is very likely going to be seeing a ban somewhere in the future in Legacy. Do you think Modern needs a card that reads lands entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger? Yeah, they could have something like that. It could even be on top of a Planeswalker or something like that. I mean, I imagine that is design space that is going to be explored in the future. Maybe that's why we haven't even seen a ban of Field of the Dead yet, because maybe they know the answers are coming somewhere down the line. And I'd be very happy to see that. Although I don't know. Would it even be that big of a deal? Because the deck building cost of having like one Valakut, one Field of the Dead in your deck is not very large. And if your opponent has the card, they have the card. What? No big deal. But if they don't have the card, I mean, it's all gravy. It's a land after all. At the very worst, you can tap it for mana. Happy New Year, Nikachu. May the current go in your favor. I hope so. Astrolabe was kind of a joke. The problem was that you couldn't not run Astrolabe. You could look at it like that. Snow Mana Base was just too OP, and Blood Moon is back slowly because it's gone. Actually, that is a good point, although I don't know if it's actually... Is that a good thing or a bad thing? We now have... So here's the deal. We do have Blood Moon back, but it's not holding back the Uro decks. It's not holding... We do have Blood Moon back. Blood Moon is being effective. We're seeing it in the Rakdos mid-range deck. We see it in Monoraid Prowess. We see it in Rakdos Shadow. So Blood Moon has been unlocked thanks to the banning of Arkham's Astrolabe, no doubt about it, but is not actually putting a hurt on the Uro decks. Like Blood Moon is like a relatively good deck, really good card in that matchup if the situation arises. Like they can still play around it by fetching the correct basics, or just countering it or Aether Gusting it or something. Good morning, Frederick. Each run had Once Upon a Time. That was a blast. Was Once Upon a Time banned this year? I don't even remember what was banned. So many things got banned. Once Upon a Time banned in Modern, Underworld Breach. Yeah, I guess that happened in March. All right. True story. Wow. This feels... Does anyone feel like it's been an eternity? 2020 feels like 3 years combined in one. I can't express how long this year has felt. Good morning, John. Dio Brando, good morning. You would think there would be more Blood Moon by now. I think there is a lot. I mean, between, like I said, I mentioned those 3 top decks, and we even still see pawns in the metagame. So I think there's a decent chunk of Blood Moon in the metagame. And yeah, well, and also a lot of people are trying to leverage Boil more than they're leveraging Blood Moon. Jaro, Happy New Year, everyone. Love you guys. It's almost 2020 here. 2021. Problem is that Amulet would play it themselves. Great. They don't have to bounce. Oh, yeah, from the Karoo land. So that's... yeah, that's right. It'd be similar to... What am I thinking? No, there is no real card like this. So, yeah, well... But would they need to? Would they want to play this land first and set up their Karoo lands? Because that's what Amulet is for. It's effectively a card that negates the effect. Actually, here's another thing about Amulet. Hold on. Let's get Simic Growth Chamber. It's actually to the... Now, the Amulet experts can, prove me wrong. I think it's to their advantage that you can put this card into your hand because that means extra mana. So, like, let's say you have a Dryad of the Elysian Grove and you have 1 Simic Growth Chamber in your hand, but you have an Amulet out. This one card represents 4 mana because you play it, tap it for mana, return it to your hand, and then replay it again with the Dryad ability. I don't actually think Amulet would want an effect that says lands ETB don't trick, like ETB... abilities don't trigger because they abuse with Dryad and Azusa the fact that they can regurgitate the same one single land for a ton of mana. So it's not clear that they would want a card that says lands entering the battlefield don't cause their abilities to trigger. How high on Wizards' priorities list do you think Modern is? Low. Low. Very, very low. So low, I don't think they pay attention to Modern all that much. Their priorities are probably Arena, Standard, Commander. Modern is like pushed off to it. Not that it's not off the map. They still make stuff like Modern Horizons or whatever. But I really wish they would have a committee or something, or they pulled very specific players from the Modern community to get to feel the pulse. To feel the pulse of Modern, because they're like not really paying attention. When things go to hell, they just don't care at all until like very big influencers, pros within the community start screeching out, look, like how could you do the format like this? This is really stupid. Like the only reason Mox Opal got banned was a bunch of pro players making the top 8 of the like a GP in the fall, saying, "Look, this card is absurd now. It's really, really stupid." And also Oko is really stupid, so they ended up axing a bunch of cards. But it needs to come down to that for them to take any action. What, in your opinion, is the best Blood Moon deck? I think Shadow. I think Shadow is the best Blood Moon deck. I think that deck is just super dangerous, and the fact that they have like an extra win, like Blood Moon is just a 1-card win condition is very useful, and they can take advantage of Blood Moon better than any other deck because they kill you super fast. Blood Moon is only as good as you can kill. Like, I think Blood Moon in a deck that has a good clock is a good Blood Moon deck. Blood Moon in a deck that does not have a good clock is a bad Blood Moon deck. First time cat. Welcome, Dan. Welcome to Coffee and MTG. I would love to see you test Tolaria West and Splinterfin. You can run 1 to 2 Mantle instead. Well, guess what, Dan? I did that already. That was my very first version of Splinterfin. And the result was it was way too clunky. We never looked for Paradise Mantle with Tolaria West. Or if we ever were in a position that we could, we'd just die because we don't have that time. You got to think of it this way. You got like at sorcery speed, I need to, so at earliest 3 mana, let's get Tolaria West out. I thought this was like a really clever way to go find Paradise Mantle and Splinterfin. And this was so like a year ago when Thassa's Oracle came out, this is what I was testing. And it's just too clunky. It comes into play tapped, and that ends up being annoying pretty often. And at earliest, you're spending 3 mana on turn 3 to look for this thing, and then you still have to wait for your next turn to put it onto the Pure Sight Marrow. And it still might be too late, and you start comboing off, and then you still have to wait till turn 5 to get your Thassa's Oracle out. It just ended up being a little too clunky, a little too slow. I thought it was a cool idea, but I tested it, and it worked out horribly. It just didn't work out. You know, it seemed like it made sense. It just didn't work out. Although that land ETB negation would be another combo piece for Merit Lage. Well, if it ever gets unbanned. What, in your opinion, is the best? Oh, I already answered this question. So I think given that it's the end of 2020, we should do a recap of what the hell. What else did we survive through 2020? The companions. We survived the companions. I don't even know if we've completely survived the companions. The companions are still around. Like, yes, they nerfed the companions. Some companions got worse than others, but they still see play. We still see Yorion, Lurrus. We still see Abosh. Like, let's look at the lists. And in my opinion, one key feature of a lot of the modern decks is can you play a companion? Okay, Rakdos Death Shadow. They play Lurrus. They've got look at the image of Lurrus here on the left. They are running Lurrus of the Dream Den. I think that is one of the bigger features of why this deck is tier 1 is that they're running Lurrus of the Dream Den. Oops, where am I? Going back. Rakdos is doing their own thing. Hammer Time. What's Hammer Time running? Lurrus. Lurrus, of course. All right, let's go next. Monoraid Aggro. What are we running here? Abosh. We got another companion. What else do we have here? Death and Taxes is running a lot of Yorions right now. So, like, you're either like a busted combo deck, or you're like an Uro deck that doesn't need a companion because, like, basically Uro itself is a companion. So does Rakdos midrange play anything? I don't think so. I think this is the only fair deck, this Rakdos midrange deck, that is literally not playing a companion, and all the rest of them do. So Vladimir's Toolbox is a combo deck, Amulet Titan combo deck. Even Mill has Lurrus. This makes a good argument to ban this thing, because it would appear that you can only compete if you can run this companion. If you're not running a companion, what are you doing? You have to be doing something super over the top, like a Heliod Company or Uro or Amulet. Even Tron runs a companion once in a while. Look, Gigantha the Wellspring, another companion. Holy shit. I should make a video. I gotta make a dedicated video to this. Like, if you're not running a companion, you might be in trouble. This could be like one of the core reasons a lot of decks have like fallen out of favor. So I mean, the only reason you would not play a companion right now in 2020 or going into 2021 is because you can go over the top and do something incredibly more busted, like what Amulet or Aladdin's Toolbox or Helid Company is doing, or the Euro deck. The Euro deck, of course. Let's go dig deep. Let's dig deeper. How much deeper can we dig? And this is after the nerf. This is post nerf. This is what's going on here. No, I think that's it. So all these other decks are much further at the bottom. I don't think maybe Gifts has Gigantha. No, they have no Gigantha. I've seen some versions have it. But the top decks are all running like Jund 1.5. How can you compete with people having an 8th card in their sideboard, you know? Even with the nerf of having to spend 3 mana to put into your hand, obviously is not enough. It's not fair to the decks that cannot run the companion. Yeah, it's just not fair. And not to mention, Lurrus is only going to get better as they print more cards that are at a lower converted mana cost. And it very easily should have said everything in the deck should have been like converted mana cost 2 or less, not just the permanents. That was a very weak restriction, very, very weak restriction. Yeah, they need to errata companions again to say you have to keep a 6-card hand to run a companion and force decks to not only play the companion if the actual companion effect is integral to the deck. Interesting possibility. That's possible. You bought a Snapcaster, mate. Sweet. Congratulations on what's probably your first Snapcaster. Snapcaster Mage. Which art? My favorite art is this one, though. But anyway, the companions. Getting back to the companions. They're still actually being a real big pain in Modern. I think they're a very, very big problem. Do you think all the companions should be banned? You know, after looking at this, probably yes. This is a little bit stupid. And here's the thing. Hearing me complain that I can't beat Shadow anymore. My key problem is if I kill any of the Shadow creatures, I kill Scourge, I kill Death Shadow, they just get them back with Lurrus. They always get them back, and I can never win this long game. There used to be a long game that I could win versus Death Shadow decks, and I just can't do it anymore. And now we're looking at the data here. The only fair, there's almost no fair decks up here that are running without a companion. Almost nothing. The only one is like just random Rakdos. Where is random Rakdos? Did you disappear all of a sudden? How are you not showing up when I look at all the decks? For some reason it disappeared, but basically it's only we have like here's Rakdos midrange at the top right. So like Rakdos midrange is like the only fair deck that I see on this list that is not running a companion. All the other ones, Rakdos Shadow, okay, so like we go down the list. Uro Omnath, busted deck. Doesn't need a companion. Rakdos Shadow, fair deck, but is running companion. Helid Company, combo deck, does not need companion. Rakdos midrange, the only anomaly. Then we go Sultai Uro, Uro deck, pretty busted by itself. Aladdin's Toolbox, it's a Titan deck. It doesn't need a companion. Hammer Time uses companion. So like, even if you kill off any of these creatures or destroy the hammer, whatever, it comes back with Lurrus. They don't care. Monoraid Aggro uses companion. Mill uses companion. Amulet Titan, it's a Titan deck, doesn't need companion. Tron uses a companion, which is even strange. It's like saying Amulet has a companion. Death and Taxes uses a companion. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 out of the top 12 decks use companions. 6 of the top 12 decks use companions. Let that sink in, people. So it appears like, the 2020 was definitely sculpted by the companions in a big way. At least in Modern. We're still feeling the effect of the companions even right now. I play Death and Taxes, and I opt to not play a companion in main IoT main board Skyclave Apparition. But you can still play Skyclave Apparition with Yorion, and that's a good combo, right? You like blink your Skyclave Apparition, and boom, you're good to go. Because the Death and Taxes companion is Yorion. Right? This is you have to play with a few more cards in your library, no big deal, but then you get to blink everything that you have on the battlefield, blink your Flicker Wisps, the Skyclave Apparition, blink your Stoneforge Mystic. Great card in Death and Taxes, in my opinion. Or ban specifically Lurrus Gigantha. I would totally fine if companions were only a commander thing. I wish there was at least one generic commander that anyone could have used, like any deck, like even like a 3/3 artifact for 3 mana, or like artifact creature for 3 mana or something, some crap like that. So even a random merfolk deck like myself can pull a companion out of thin air. Don't think they'll ever be balanced. Even if you have a 6-card hand, it's still a free card. No, because the idea is that you're exchanging a card in your hand for the companion. It's just that you're making your hand a little bit better by guaranteeing that you have this companion in your hand. Like, that's the idea. If you start the game with 6 cards in hand, then basically you're playing with 1 less card. You don't have that free extra card. Although I think Lurrus makes up for it because of Mishra's Bauble and just bringing creatures back from the graveyard. I think the effect is a little bit stupid. I keep acquiring Death and Taxes pieces because they're playing Yorion pile on stuff is fun to a degree. I'm sure, well, companions are totally fun for the people who are playing them. I think they could ban companions on the fact that they weren't play tested well enough since they had to have an emergency rule change. Well, the thing is, they disrupted, like, they weren't a big deal in Standard, right? I don't think they were a big deal in Standard. Like, they didn't matter all that much. Like, they saw a play or whatever. I think a Bosch was one of the more popular ones. But for the most part, like, it's hard to use Lurrus in those formats. It's like but it's like Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Vintage. That's when the emergency needed to happen, because the companions just completely fucked those formats over big time. That's why they needed the nerf. I mean, like, and why is Lurrus still banned in Vintage? I think that doesn't make any sense. Lurrus is still banned in Vintage. Because in the past, you could Black Lotus Lurrus onto the battlefield immediately and then get your Black Lotus back. And you just basically have a free 3/2 body on the battlefield for nothing. But the deal is now it costs 3 mana to put into your hand. So you're now cracking a Black Lotus to put a Lurrus in your hand. Not the value that I think Vintage wanted. I think you can take Lurrus off the ban list, in my opinion. I mean, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Lurrus still has like a really good effect in that format. I mean, even at 6 mana, having a Black Lotus every turn might matter. I don't play enough Vintage to say one way or another. Is there a possible world/rule set where companions could have worked? I don't know. You know what? Adding that tax obviously hasn't been enough, because one thing that's sort of similar about a lot of these decks is that they're all willing to go into the late game. Like, Rakdos Shadow can kill you quickly, but they can grind you into the late game where Lurrus now becomes super OP, because after your opponent has lost all the resources, okay, you have a lot of time, grab your Lurrus, play it next turn if you need to, and then start grinding value out of your graveyard, and you just completely run away with the game at that point. Same thing with Rakdos midrange. Sorry, not Rakdos midrange. The Abosh Prowess deck. You can go into the late game, and the tax on these companions just did not end up mattering. It just didn't end up mattering. If any deck that can go into the late game does not care about the tax all that much, you're not in a rush. So, you know, after that tax, I have no idea what would make these cards fair. I have no idea. I did not realize that. It makes me feel like, okay, if I'm playing Merfolk, I really need a Lurrus in my deck, because if I'm not, I'm obviously to some catastrophic disadvantage here compared to all the other decks. It's too bad. It's too bad. Hot take: companion back to errata, but ban Lurrus and print some new or just ban them all like conspiracy things in Legacy. Probably you just need to ban all of them. I think that's probably the correct ruling. You have to just ban all the companions. I didn't even realize until the end of the year that, yeah, companions are still like taking over the format. They just did it at a more subtle rate. And I guess as the as you let the decks playtest themselves against one another, in the end, the companion decks still rise to the top. If you're a fair deck in Modern, it appears that you need to be running a companion, or you're dead. The simplest thing might be not to ban companions, but to ban the mechanic. Just eliminate the ability to play them as. But that gets. I don't know if I want to be a judge to say that like that is too complicated, but like that's not going to be intuitive for anybody. But maybe that's possible. Like companion still exists, but you know, just like commander cards, you can't. Maybe you know what? That's an elegant solution. Maybe you can still the cards can still exist. Well, there are still some decks that play Lurrus just as a creature. But anyway, maybe the solution is you just ban companion, the companion mechanic. That's only like a Ponyland tabletop commander sort of thing, but for the competitive formats, this is that's not a thing. Just like we don't have commander in Modern. I can't play like any particular like creature. Maybe there aren't. Are there any legal commanders in made for commander cards legal in Modern? I don't know. Want to say there is, but I don't know for sure. But obviously we don't play with the commander rule. Is Lurrus similar to Deathrite Shaman in terms of power? No, I think they are very different. Lurrus is about card advantage, and for the most part, Deathrite Shaman is about mana. It was just like a really, really good mana dork. The things that Deathrite Shaman helped enable at the time were things like turn 2 Liliana the Veil, which is comparable to like a turn 2 to Fairy Time Reveler today. It still had value in the late game, but not to what Lurrus is doing. It took a long time to ban Deathrite Shaman, even in Legacy, but it was very clear that you had to do something about Lurrus immediately. Yeah, I couldn't find it. Good morning, Mikey J. Well, they tried to keep the companions around for a little bit. Got to squeeze that money out, you know. Wizards of the Coast and their money. 2020 was the year of the money for Wizards of the Coast. Nikachu, it's simple. We play Bant, Collected Company, Yorion, Merfolk. Maybe I should explore more Yorion than I have. There are cards that we can utilize in Merfolk for Yorion. I know M Hayashi has been on some of this stuff. I should try to do my own thing. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much everyone for being with me for the final day of 2020. We're just reminiscing of what the hell happened in 2020. Right now we're on the companion thing, and turns out it wasn't even fixed. It's still not even a fixed thing. There's still companions all over the place in the top decks of Modern. Some of the top I should make top 5 companions. Lurrus into Obosh, into Gigantha, etc. What is my favorite companion? I guess Lurrus. I could be interested in Yorion. I really like the look of Yorion and the fact that it's so easy to splash in a mono blue deck for me, but a little expensive. It's like 3 mana and you got to get to 5 mana. So, but I like the effect. I just can't utilize it all that much. Okay, hold on. I might be skipping a lot of questions and comments. A lot of stuff going on here. A lot of conversation. You can't unban Lurrus and Vintage. Why is that? The rule change, remember. You can't have turn 1. You can't go Lotus Lurrus into Lotus on turn 1 anymore. With great fire design comes great fire responsibility to drop the ban hammer or something. They should be more liberal about the bans. Although, like, they're going to get... From Wizards' perspective, they're like, fucked any other way they do it. Like, they don't ban anything. People are like, well... You're not letting us play with the card. If they don't ban anything, people are going to be pissed that, you know, we're playing with busted cards. If they do ban things, then people are like, look how many cards you banned this year. I wonder if is that a theory? You know, they can only ban so many cards per year to make it look good for themselves. They've banned a lot of cards recently. I wish companions go to your hand when you do something instead of deck building, like Luris, go to your after 5 or more low. Sorry, don't understand. Yeah, Zerta was hit in Legacy as well. So that one got nerfed. Why is Lutri banned in Commander? Why they just ban Lutri as a companion but let people play it on decks? So the deal is it would be because the nature of companion. Let's go look at Lutri. Lutri specifically says each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name. So that naturally in Commander, it's not a deck building whoops, you guys can't see. It's not a deck building restriction because every Commander deck has to have only one copy of every card. So basically, if you're in the blue or red colors, or I guess you have to be as an Izzet deck, you would 100% be playing with this, and then you'd have an unfair advantage over every single other Commander deck that's had to make a choice whether they build with a companion or not. So anyway, they just auto-banned Lutri because the deck building restriction wasn't a restriction in Commander. In your opinion, what is the more fair format to play as of right now? Modern, Pioneer, or Standard? Not Modern, that's for sure. Probably just Standard. You know what? I don't know enough about Pioneer or Standard, but I would just take a wild guess that I want to say it's Standard, but I don't know for sure. I want to say Modern is not super busted. There's a lot of combo decks, but it's still playable format. It's just pretty fast. They were designed to be fringe, hard-to-play companions that rewarded deck-building creativity. Luris is a clear violation of the spirit of that idea, at least too easy to splash, and just too easy to build. Way too easy to build. Honestly, making the companions impose the condition that your deck only has cards of the companion's color identity can force just enough restriction to make them fair. Making the companions... So you mean like because they made a ton. So are you trying to say like if they went dedicated like blue or red here, that'd be more fair instead of making it hybrid and letting like almost anyone play them? Only have cards of the companion's color identity. Oh, no, I understand what you mean. So if I want to play Luris, I have to only have white and black cards in my hand. That is interesting. So, but here's the deal. You still don't solve the problem of the companion, which is someone will build an Orzhov deck and they'll have the big advantage over everyone else. There'll be a deck that can play Mishra's Bauble and I like Stoneforge Mystic, or not Stoneforge Mystic, because you can't run Batterskull. But the point is, like, whatever deck can run Luris is still going to have a huge edge against every other deck that can't. Like, that's like the biggest problem that I have with companions, is that the restriction is actually an advantage because decks that cannot be built with this restriction are not allowed to use it. But the decks that can be built with the restriction can use it and have that large advantage. Like, that's the more you restrict something, the smaller range of decks that are going to succeed with it. Like, the reason we have so many companion decks right now is because they all were able to build. They were all able to modify their 75 in order to build it. So like Rakdos Shadow, Hammer Time, Abosh Prowess, Mill, Tron, Death and Taxes. They didn't have a problem modifying their deck in order to utilize these cards, and as a result, they've risen to the top. If you restrict it even further, we'll see less companion decks, but they're still going to be at the top, and they'll still be a problem, in my opinion. In my opinion, the companion probably is just like it's a dumpster fire mistake. It was just wrong, and maybe the correct thing in retrospect is just ban all these fucking things. Ban. You know, I was wondering, what the hell do I ban from Death Shadow to make it fair? You know what? Maybe it's just Luris. Get the fuck out of my format, Luris. Get out of here. I used to be able to kill a Death Shadow and it wouldn't come back. I dismember it. I took 4 to the face to kill that Death Shadow. And as a result, you know how you neutralize a Luris? You exile creatures. Let's look at all the decks that exile creatures. This one does. Its removal spell of choice, Path to Exile, so you can't bring it back from the graveyard. What does Heliod Company play as removal? Oh, oh, we don't have. Oh, there's no. Okay, we have Skyclave Apparition. This is a removal spell. Sideboard, Path to Exile, and more Skyclave Apparitions. Again, not letting anything go to the graveyard. Same thing with Hammer Time. They're going to be packing some number of, or this one's not running any Path to Exiles at all. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this version never had Path to Exile, or maybe this deck, I should say. Death and Taxes, of course, is going to be packing the Path to Exiles and the Winds of Abandon. Like, they're prepared for Luris. I learned this when I was playing Luris and Merfolk. Like, I can never get my Merfolk back from the graveyard with Luris because my opponents keep exiling my creatures. So that's what happened. That's what's happened to the removal suite. Path to Exile, Winds of Abandon, and they also play with, where's the Skyclave Apparition? Skyclave Apparition, 4 Skyclave Apparitions. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That's what has to compete. But if you're playing a deck like Burn, which doesn't put things into exile, you're just destroying them. That's not good enough. That's not good enough in 2020. You look at Jund. Where's Jund? Where's Boomer Jund? 1.5% of the metagame. You're really fucking hurting this now in this economy. You just put things in the graveyard. That's not good enough right now. That's really bad. You need to be exiling things. And they're not exiling. So anyway, that's the state of. I got to make a more dedicated video. We got to F the companions. We have to F the companion. It's time. Nikachu, you underrate Deeproot Champion. You have so many vials and counter spells. I'm not underrating Deeproot Champion. This is just a. This is a simple 1/1 creature. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Deeproot Champion. I mean, maybe Spreading Seas helps a little bit, but it's still a very, very awkward card. It's like terrible top deck. It's better in a Delver deck than a Merfolk deck, in my opinion. Friend of mine uses Luris on his humans and added Acquisitions Expert as the new card in the deck. Acquisition Experts. Oops. What do we got? ETB. Target opponent reveals a number of cards from their hand equal to the number of creatures in your party. You choose one of those cards. That player discards that card. Interesting. So you could have like a million. This is a human and rogue. So does that mean? Okay, your party is cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard. So this is a rogue. So you could have. That's interesting. But you have to. But if you're playing Yorion, then you have to dump. This card looks really interesting even without Luris. If you're playing Luris, you lose like really important wizards, right? You lose Reflector Mage, you lose Mantis Rider. I don't know if that's a sacrifice Humans is willing to make, but maybe. Do you think Thieving Skydiver would be good for a control deck sideboard that can use Jason Mind Sculptor to Fairy to bounce and reuse? Probably not. But I have seen some weird deck lists on Twitter. People are trying to break Thieving Skydiver, apparently. And what they're doing, at least one list that I saw, was using liquid metal coating. So what they do is they turn their opponent's permanents into artifacts, and then they steal them. Clever, huh? Neat. So the deck has like 3 liquid metal coating in the main deck, and then 1 in the sideboard, and they play with the card package, and then they basically go turn 2, coding your stuff into artifacts, and then they steal them. They just take it. Can you take lands? If it was gain control of target artifacts, yeah, you can take a land. So you could easy snap, take a land from your opponent. Interesting, very cute. Maybe that could be in the Karn Merfolk deck. Honestly, I just really don't like how between Uro, Companions, Crux, and Scourge cards from last year have just morphed Modern into a format near unrecognizable from a year or two ago. Well, no, let's not talk to. Okay, it's quite a bit different. Let's look at the metagame, how different it is now. So this is a completely different control deck. We'll admit that. Uro Omnath is just like a completely different beast. Rakdos Death Shadow, we've had that in the past. Rakdos Midrange, we've had that in the past. Heliod Company is like a spiritual successor to like Counters Company, I would say. Although they don't play any Counters Company. I guess it's just a very different combo deck. But it still plays Walking Ballista, so I'm going to call it a... You know, it feels similarly enough to Counters Company. That deck is still around. Latimer's Toolbox, that's completely new. How long has that been in the format, though? Like, how long has this deck been a deck? Oh, I guess it needed Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That was a very important addition to this list. That was Dryad. Oh, sorry, no one can see what I'm doing. Okay, so Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That was a huge new card that enabled this archetype, but also it wiped out Titan Shift. Titan Shift isn't even a deck anymore because they're not the best Valakut the Molten Pinnacle deck. They're just, what do you think is the best blue-white control version right now? What do you mean, like, just blue-white? Because I would say the best blue-white X version is just some Uro deck. Best blue-white control deck is probably just classic control. Maybe not the counterbalance version, but, like, just classic control. But in any case, yeah, this is, like, the new... And I hate that about Dryad of the Elysian Grove. I really hate, and you can't make it lose the ability. I really hate that as well. Merfolk Trickster does not interact with it. Aladdin's Call, yeah, is a big addition, but this was a card that was been around in the format for like over a year. You know, believe it or not, Modern Horizons came out like a year and a half ago. It's been a long time. We've had Modern Horizons for quite a while. I was there when Modern Horizons came out. I remember all of us speculating on cards. Okay, so what else is... So that's a new card. Hammer Time is brand new. Also been in the format for a long time, but only became prevalent after all the artifact hate disappeared from the from people's sideboards. Monoraid Aggro has always... Okay, this is a very different Monoraid Aggro deck. This is a very unique one. This is like the spiritual successor of the Arclight Phoenix deck. The Monoraid Phoenix deck continued on without the Phoenixes, and then this is the more mid-range version of that deck, but still is like this. It's the evolution of those earlier lists, but still light up the stage. Lightning Bolt, Lava Dart, Firebolt is M. Hayashi's own card though, but that was always around. Mill is... It's hard to believe that fucking Mill is on the map here. Why are you so high up on the list, Mill? That's insane. You're higher up than Amulet Titan and Tron. Tron was feared by so many decks for so long. But these are all familiar faces ad nauseum. Here's the familiar... Look, we have Burn, we have Dredge, we have Gift Storm. Here's a new one, Oops All Spells. That's a stupid deck, though. Here we have Stoneblade Jund. Here's all the familiar faces, but they're all at the bottom. They're pushed down by the Uro decks and some of the new combo decks. That's all. This is still around, though. I remember a time when the question was, will this set have a card that breaks through to Modern instead of now, where the question is whether the current Modern cards will survive in the new set? Yeah, that's a new question. Will they not get banned? Oh, you mean the current Modern cards? That's true. But we could also look at it another way, is like, will this card get banned in Modern is another question. Oh my God, we had so much fun talking about all this stuff that I forgot that we do Decklist review. All right, everyone. So if you want to get your 75, get feedback on your deck list, you can do so by joining my Discord in the description below. There is a description. Go to the channel, Decklist Review. In that channel, use the command !review deck space, give the URL to your deck, and you will be eligible to be chosen for Decklist Review. There is no queue. It says you're you're in line for whatever. That doesn't mean anything. You are chosen at random, I assure you. So you every single day, every single weekday, you are eligible for being chosen at random. So please submit your deck lists right now. Submit the deck lists. Tarmogoyf still sees play. We have Jund Death Shadow is also a variation of the Rakdos Shadow deck. So Tarmogoyf still sees play. And I hate it. With those Mishra's Baubles, gets a beefy really quickly. Yeah, Mill went from meme to top tier. It's probably my favorite thing to happen in Magic in 2020. I'm happy for the Mill community because I like playing against that deck. Easy win. Any thoughts on Rakdos midrange? It's a real contender. Why play it over Rakdos Shadow? Honestly, I don't see any advantage to playing it over Rakdos Shadow. Honestly, it just appears that the shell, the Rakdos shell, is just strong enough. I think the fact that you have let me show you. You have 4.9% for Death Shadow and 3.7%. I bet that extra 1.2% is what you get when you play with the Death Shadow creatures. This is like just a little bit more mid-rangey and slower with Magmatic Chandler and Kroxa and Hazard the Fervent or whatever. And you still have a good shell or whatever. You got like 4 main deck Blood Moons. I think the Shadow deck is better though. Still a good deck. If Shadow's not your thing, you don't like putting your life total to nothing, then you can go the mid-range route. It does play main deck Blood Moon, which is sort of a deal. Because it's not gonna be that effective against the other Rakdos decks or the Mono Red deck, but it's still gonna be good. Still gonna be good. All right, so as I wait for people to submit their deck lists, I have sponsors, of course, like themanabase.com, the content site with Commander, Modern, Pioneer videos, articles, and podcasts, and more. The Manabase is your home base for everything Magic the Gathering, and the Manabase is sponsored by FusionGamingOnline.com, my favorite local game store. You always got to be ready for the deal of the week. Show up at FusionGamingOnline.com to see what the new deal is every single week. This week, it is 15% off all Modern Masters singles. So your Chalice of the Voids, Cryptic Commands, Fetch Lands, Tarmogoyfs, Emrakul's. You can get them 15% off this week at FusionGamingOnline.com. My favorite local game store, but remember, this is a Canadian site in Canadian prices, so make sure you do the conversions. And we're also going to thank my sponsor, Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online, and you can support the channel by using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or you can save yourself 15% off your first 3 months by using my coupon code Nikachu. Mana Traders is a great place to be able to brew to your heart's content without having to actually buy any of the cards. I'm gonna thank Mana Traders. Did you see the new angel that was leaked? I did not. Sorry. Did not see any angels that were leaked. Are there any cards that you think could be unbanned in Modern, and why are they Twin and Opal? There are. I am never going to make the argument that Opal should get unbanned. That's for sure. You can make some argument that Twin can get unbanned. Because I think if you unban Twin, I don't know if it's a good thing, but you could do it. You're most definitely not fucking unbanning Opal. You are nuts. I'll call anyone crazy for even considering that. Oh my god, what have I done? Okay, hold on. Okay, let's get into decklist review. All right, we got Dingus Mingus, Naya midrange. Dingus Mingus. Help me. All right. That's a sign if I ever saw one. Not many creatures in this deck. We have 4 Wild Nacatl, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 4 Tarmogoyf, 3 Lurrus of the Dream Den, 2 Seasoned Pyromancer, 4 Bloodbraid Elf. but very few creatures. Planeswalkers, we have 3 Ren and 6, 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Path to Exile, 2 Winds of Abandon, 4 Mishra's Bauble, 2 Seal of Fire. Ghost Quarter, 22 lands. I guess 22 is an okay number. Why the Ghost Quarters, though? 2 Ghost Quarter, 1 Raging Ravine, Sacred Foundry, Forest, Mountain, Plain, Stomping Ground. Is this a full deck? Is this really 60 cards? 19, 22, 32, 36, 38. Oh, yeah. That's 60 cards. Why does it feel like there are no creatures in this deck? Now, Tarmogoyf is pretty big by itself. It's almost like Jund, but you're playing white, and you have a Wild Nacatl in here. Now mid-range has my upvote. Okay, let's go. Let's look at some more stuff. Engineer Explosives. Can you use this card? You have stuff at every part of the converted mana cost. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if this is that. I don't know if this is a good card in your deck. Magma Spray. There's got to be something better than Magma Spray. I would think. Seal of Primordium, Weather the Storm, Anger the Gods, Choke, Boil, Clothis. I would prefer to see Clothis maybe in the main deck. Thrun the Last Troll, and Thragtusk. I don't like your sideboard. Like, this is one of these sideboards that are like, okay, so I'll tell you the good cards in your sideboard. Boil is okay. Let's talk sideboard philosophy for a second. For the most part, you want cards that are going to really swing matchups in your sideboard that are really going to turn the tides. And I most definitely can believe that Boil and Choke can do those things. I can believe Weather the Storm can do those things as well. So if you really want this against Burn, for example, I'm not in love with it against Prowess, but it does serve its purpose against some decks. Anger the Gods is like a little awkward in your deck because it kills your creatures as well, like big time. We have Mishra's Bauble and Seal of Fire, so we do have stuff to pump up the yard. What do we got here? Weather the Storm, Seal of Prime. Like, I don't mind this one. You need Artifact and Enchantment Destruction, so that's fine. And you can bring it back from the graveyard with Lurrus. I love this suggestion. This is a great one. Magma Spray is like a little weird. I guess it's just to kill your opponent's Lurruses or something. Bit awkward. Engineered Explosives, a little bit awkward. I even think Anger the Gods is a little bit awkward because it kills everything except your Tarmogoyf. Maybe not your Scavenging Ooze. Weather seems like a good fit according to some some players. Storm seems to be in a good place, but underplayed. But I don't believe that Weather the Storm can beat a Storm deck because you play Weather the Storm, you gain a bunch of life, but then they remend their Grape Shot and they can like just hit you again. Like if the Storm deck is going off, they will beat you anyway. That's what I'm trying to say. Try Kozilek's Return over Anger. That might be a wave. That's a good suggestion because Kozilek's Return is in a good spot right now. I like that suggestion, and it doesn't kill your board. It will just kill. Well, it still probably kills a few things. It doesn't, but at least your Wild Nacatl can survive, assuming it's large enough. And also, Scavenging Ooze is more likely to survive your Kozilek's Return. And it also beats Auriok Champion if that's something that ends up being brought in against you. But it also is a nice, reliable thing you could do at instant speed against a deck with Field of the Dead. Wipe their board. So this might be better. I'm not sure. Might be better. It's a heavy-hitting card. I just don't like that it wipes out your own creatures. Is Wild Nacatl like the best thing that we can do here? Because this is more of an egg. It's not that great of a card. Like 1 mana, 3/3. Doesn't even start off as a 3/3. I'd rather have more Seasoned Pyromancers, to be honest. I think this card is very, very good. I think it's very, very good in this deck because you're obviously more mid-rangey, so you need to, the very few threats that you have in your deck need to be really resistant. I think Giver of Runes is better for maybe a slightly more aggro deck. I don't think it's necessary here. Whether in conjunction with Graveyard Hate, he's right. It's not good enough alone. Deck cannot run Commander Speaker. Honestly, I would prefer, because you have quite a few things you can do on 1 mana. You can play Lightning Bolt. You can play Path to Exile. You can play Seal of Fire. I'd actually rather this was just more Seasoned Pyromancers and maybe like more Winds of Abandon or something, or even more like Seal of Fire or something. I'm not sure what. And also, now your Bloodbraid Elf has... Actually, your Bloodbraid Elf hits a lot of stuff anyway. It's not too bad. But I would suggest going up on the curve here. Because at 3... You don't even have that many things to do at 3 mana anyway. Once you hit 3 mana, it's just basically Lurrus or Seasoned Pyromancer. You do need a solid 1-drop. Could always try Jam Elf Sprawl. This is well, that's a completely. This is like, okay, so I can see what they're going for. This is Jund, but it's just not black. It's white instead of black, but it's Jund, right? It's just Jund. We're running Lightning Bolt. I don't why hasn't no one tried this route anyway? Like, who cares about the hand disruption all the time, especially in an economy of Lurrus? You know what's another card you could make? I don't know if it's that good in this particular shell, but you know, something like Skyclave Apparition can also be played somewhere in this deck. I don't think Noble Hierarch is maybe a possibility. It just feels like there's very few creatures for a heavy creature. Like, it looks like Jund. And actually, by the way, I have no problem with this. I have no problem with playing like white Jund. So, okay, I'll tell you this much. Play Wild Nacatl, but if it just dies all the time and you got no value out of it, play more valuable cards like Seasoned Pyromancer, Skyclave Apparition. Like, these are more valuable cards, in my opinion. That will be more valuable to your deck. I don't know about the Ghost Quarters. I think you should have Field of Ruin instead. That can at least dig for, like, mana sources. Like, does anyone play Ghost Quarter anymore these days? So what's the deal with this card? Or is it just particularly better against exactly Tron? Yeah, maybe Wild Nacatl. Okay, maybe I'm being a little harsh. This is a really good point. If it dies, replay with Lurrus. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on Wild Nacatl. If Wild Nacatl dies, it's actually like the easiest thing to like play Lurrus and play a Wild Nacatl from your graveyard. So maybe I'm being a little harsh on Wild Nacatl. Maybe Wild Nacatl is actually way better in this deck than I'm giving it credit for. This is really cool, though. This is really cool. Is there not like a better Planeswalker we can play though for 2 mana? Or not for 2 mana, but like in the Naya colors? I'm not sure. You all know me. I've never been high on Lurrus. We don't even have a Horizon land in here. We have no Horizon land? Oh no, sorry, we do. We have Sunbay Canyon. Okay, so that's good enough. So I would fix up the sideboard. This is good. This is like, I really think Weather the Storm is overrated and is just a bunch of poop. Anger the Gods, maybe that should be Kozilek's return. Choke is good. Boil is good. I think Klothys is I think Klothys is fine for the main deck. I don't know how you sideboard in every matchup, so you know there's going to be matchups where these Lightning Bolts and Path to Exiles and Winds of Abandon might be dead. So bringing in creatures is fine. So I don't mind seeing cards like this, because it's just filler, you know? And, you know, against any deck like Prowess, you're going to want some random life gain. So you bring in that Thragtusk, right? Where do you submit a deck? There is a link to my Discord in the description. Then go to Decklist, the channel Decklist review, and then use the command !review deck. But anyway, so those are my thoughts. Did I actually recommend anything? Not really. Just fix the sideboard and maybe add more Seasoned Pyromancers. Like I might like Seasoned Pyromancer more than I like Ren and Six. I'm not a huge fan of Ren and Six. I know this is a card that Jund loves. I think the best use of Ren and Six in the format is just grabbing fetch lands for the Uro deck. So they're guaranteed land drops with their Uro, and they're guaranteed fetch lands to find Mystic Sanctuary. I think that's honestly the best use of Ren and Six that I've seen in the format. Just using it as a fair way to bring back cards. I'm not in love with that synergy. Honestly, not in love with it. Hold on, do we have enough? Okay, do we have enough green sources? Sacred Foundry, you have Forest turn 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. You might be sure, like you don't have enough green sources to get Wild Nikachu out on turn 1 reliably. You need 14. You need about 13 to 14 green sources. Raging Ravine doesn't count. Maybe you don't need to get Raging Ravine out. Like, I guess you go turn 1 Ravine sometimes, turn 2 play Bolt and Wild Nikachu on turn 2. Still think Ghost Core, like, I need to... in Modern, how many ramp, how many spot removal, and how many big wipes should be in a deck generally? Well, that totally... well, I mean, that just depends on the deck. So the more heavy on... I will say this. If you're playing more removal spells than creatures, or the larger you... the higher up you go on removal spells, the more powerful your few creatures need to be, because... they're going to get hit by removal themselves, and the one creature that lives needs to be big and powerful. But then if you play with more creatures and less removal spells, your creatures can be a little bit more dirtily if there is some synergy amongst them when there is a density of them together. Because like that's what more or less defines like mid-range decks like Jund and aggro decks or creature-heavy decks like Death and Taxes or Merfolk. So you're saying to drop Ren so that you can finally play an Adept in peace? No, like I'm saying I just don't like this card. I think it's like clunky, very weak in the format. Like what does 1 damage kill in this format right now? Not much. I just don't like the synergy. I like Seasoned Pyromancer a lot. I like Clothis a lot. I like like I'd love to see some Clothises in the main deck. I like that a lot. But I think it's a cool deck list. I like the idea of Winds of Abandon. I like the removal suite. This removal suite is probably better than what Jund is doing right now. You know, we were just talking about how you need to exile cards to compete with the Lura stacks, and you can absolutely do that with Path to Exile and Winds of Abandon. And maybe you should try to squeeze in some Skyclave Apparitions somewhere, if not like into the sideboard. But I think this is awkward because you're going to nail at least one of your own cards with this. Like Engineered Explosives is usually in a deck that is after, like, Urza and Titan can play EE on 2 because it just doesn't kill many things on 2 in their own decks. But anyway, I hope clean up the sideboard a little bit. I'd seriously consider something else other than Weather the Storm. There's a lot of really good options out there. And maybe clean up the Engineered Explosive and Magma Spray. Maybe I'm underrating Magma Spray. Exiling the creature is useful, pending the situation. Maybe Ghost Quarter should be Field of Ruin. Because you probably need the mana yourself anyway, and this is not something you can recycle from the graveyard with Lurrus or anything like that. And pay attention to Wild Nikachu, because if this is just like a bad 1-drop in the end, like it's a 1-drop that you can get back with Lurrus, I like that, but it's like one of the more underwhelming creatures in as a whole in your creature suite. Anyway, thank you very much for submitting the list. I think definitely you're onto something, though. This is definitely a good direction to take. Maybe instead of people should be looking less at black-green decks and maybe looking more at like black-red with the white splash. Cool stuff. Thanks for submitting the list. All right, let's keep it going. Thanks very much. I always have trouble when brewing with ramp type of removal balance in Modern, playing mono white. Advice definitely will help my brews. You're welcome. Yeah, like if you're ramping, if you're ramping with creatures, you should probably have some other creatures to be ramping into. Bauble in a Bloodbraid Elf deck is loose. Whatever. It's still a card. You still get a random card. Sometimes you get Inquisition of Kozilek, and it's useless, you know? So, I mean, I don't want to criticize the Bauble, so it's at least you get a free extra random card. But those Jund decks, they have bricked on their Bloodbraid Elf so many times against me. Inquisition of Kozilek. Thoughtseize. What else? What other random garbage cards? This may not be good value, but like sometimes they'll also find Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push when there's nothing in play. So like those are all misses, you know? Those are all stone cold misses. So it all depends on the situation. Mishra's Bauble is at least guaranteed a card. All right, did I look for... We have got Nardoto. Okay, next one is Nardoto. Nardoto! Nycats! Meow! Is this new, Nardoto? If you're here? Because I'm pretty sure I reviewed something like this before. So 4 Loam Lion, 3 Sacred Cat, 3 Savannah Lion. This is probably one of the weaker lions out there. This is pretty low on the curve, though. 3 Savannah Lion, 2 Scythe Tiger, Shroud, ETB, sacrifice it unless you sacrifice a land. 1 mana, 3/2 with Shroud is fucking big game, I will admit that. ETB, sacrifice it unless you sacrifice a land. Interesting. Wild Nikachu. 4 wild. We have another wild. Wow. Who bet that there would be 2 wild Nikachu decks on Coffee and MTG back to back? Bronzehide Lion, Indestructible, Brimaz, Feline Sovereign, Kihira the Orphan Guard, and two King of the Pride. And of course, we can use a Kihira Orphan Guard as companion. You know what? I'm gonna say we gotta scrap this. Let's look at the right list. We have Lightning Bolt, Collected Company. That's it. I think that's it. So there is a chance we don't. Are we Naya just for the Lightning Bolt? Oh, fuck it. Don't play. No. 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 We are not splashing an entire color for 1 card. We are not doing that. Especially since we aren't even certain that Lightning Bolt is even good anymore right now in Modern. You have access to Path to Exile. Path to Exile is going to be fine in this economy, in my opinion. So we are not going to be weak to Blood Moon and take so much damage from our lands just for that 1 card. There's no way we're doing that. So we're scrapping the Lightning Bolts. Even if it is good synergy in this deck, we are not playing Lightning Bolt. We're not splashing a whole color for Lightning Bolt. Just screw that. We're gonna have more forests, more plains. We're gonna get rid of this. You're gonna take so much damage for no reason. You're gonna lose. You're definitely gonna lose game. Oh, you have to take Wild Nikachu too. So we're already invested in Wild Nikachu. Thank you for saving me. I still don't like it. I mean, we could play more. We can play 1 Sacred Foundry, as a very light splash. I think this is too much. Or is it? If we play enough fetch lands, we're going to find these. We can probably find the Stomping Ground anyway. Glad we were all thinking that, LOL. Well, I mean, Lightning Bolt is still a good... Lightning Bolt is a good card. I would say it's being pushed out by Path to Exile for the most part. It's a good card in this deck. That's a really tough one to be playing this Lightning Bolt here, unless we can find more reasons to play Lightning Bolt somewhere else. I have to say that this is one of the first Wild Nacatl decks that I can't remember if the prior cat decks were playing with Wild Nacatl. Okay, let's go. Let's move on. What can I say for certain? We got to remove Scythe Tiger. You know what? This is a card. This card looks really good, but it's just gonna set. It's only gonna be good on turn like 1, more or less. But it's gonna set you back big time. You're always gonna be like removing lands, and our curve is not exactly low. It's a little bit high. We do want to get to our Kahiras and our Feline Sovereigns and our King of the Prides. The top end matters a lot. So I actually don't want to play with Scythe Tiger, and I would rather fill in the cracks with another Sacred Cat and another Savannah Lions, or even another King of the Pride if necessary. Run Feldstones. What's Feldstones? Feldstone? Oh, Fieldstone? Fields. I don't know what this card is. I'm sorry. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, Flagstones. Flagstones is clunky, though. It comes into play tapped. We're not running that card. We can't, you know, in these aggro decks, we can't afford to be, is there Flagstones in this deck? Would not be the most insane card to see. Okay, so how many Horizon lands do we have? Easy 4. You can easily play 4 Horizon Canopies. I would do that. Easy 4 of, I think. 2 Horizon Canopies, I think, is too low. I know it doesn't have synergy with Wild Nacatl, but you need the threats. You just need the threats. Flagstone, hold on. Flagstones comes into play untapped? Oh, am I thinking about the land that it gets? Legendary land. Flagstone is put into a graveyard from the battlefield. You may search your library for a Plains card, put onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library. Yeah, oh, the thing comes into play tapped. No, let's play some Flagstones of maybe we can play Flagstones of Trocaire in this deck with this card. Still seems a bit janky. Because we definitely still need to play around Blood Moon in this deck. We're more or less basically a 2-color deck. Okay, I'm still gonna make an executive decision that we should not have Lightning Bolt in this deck. We should have Path to Exile, and you should have a much lighter red splash, like 1 Sacred Foundry, 1 Stomping Ground, and then you just go up on everything else, and then you just have to fetch out that 1 Stomping Ground or Sacred Foundry once in a while, just for your Wild Nacatl, because you're going to take so much damage. I think this deck is going to take more damage than it should overall. And we're still going to remove the Scythe Tiger, because you need to get to 4 mana. You don't want to lose 1 land at any step of the way. Yeah, you can't play it off of turn 1, but you could do it turn 2. There's a lot of 1-drops in here, so you go like, I don't know, turn 1 Loam Lion, and then turn 2 you play the Scythe Tiger, sacrifice, and then I don't know, tap a white, play a Sacred Cat with your Flagstones, then play the Scythe Tiger. Scythe Tiger. Welcome, MTG Lion. The notorious finance channel, or I don't know, maybe former finance channel. Needs more Kasali Pride Mage. That's a good suggestion. I like that one. Now, is that in the sideboard? We have Prowling Leopard. Can't be countered. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Okay, that's not bad. I like that. Actually, there's no Cavernous Souls in here. Is that just... Are we not running Cavernous Souls just for the sake of Wild Nacatl? I can get behind that, by the way. I can get behind that. If you want to maximize your synergy on Wild Nacatl, I can get behind that, especially if you're running this Prowling Serpapard in the sideboard, which, by the way, I think is very important to beat the Uro decks, because they are loaded with counter spells. Okay, I don't like... I don't like cards like this in the sideboard. I'm seeing this a lot. Like this is not a powerful. This is not going to turn the tide versus like many decks. And if you need filler cards, you got that with the Prowling Serpapard. You could bring that in against any deck. It's a 4/3 creature for 3 mana. I wonder if you can main deck this card. It's not a lord, but it's like a pretty. Unfortunately, the cats they get really good at 3 mana, but there's not enough things at like 1 and 2 mana. Rest in Peace, great card. Damping Sphere, great card. Celestial Purge, great card. For like these are heavy hitting, powerful cards. So I really like these cards as sideboard cards. Pride Sovereign, you got to scrap this for like a third fourth Celestial Purge. I can get behind that because of the Death Shadow decks and the Swift Spear decks. Absolutely. What are we missing here? One Brimaz seems a bit out of place. If you think like Bronzehide is better, I don't, I'm always of the opinion a one of is a none of. Like if you cannot convince yourself that you should have another one of these, I don't think the first one was worth it in the first place. You could have another King of the Pride. This does survive Lightning Bolt and Lava Dart very well, though. Maybe Brimaz is underrated. It seems like it should be a Vile deck, but they're actually playing with Collected Company. So, and they don't actually, I would argue that they don't actually need Vile so much because they can play 3 1-drops in their first few turns, like Loam Lion into 2 Sacred Cats or 2 Savannah Lions or whatever. So I guess we could take out the Sky Tiger and add another Savannah Lions as a Sacred Cat. I think that's the only way you can up the count. It's more of a Collected Company deck than anything else. I would still be open to the possibility of having like 1 or 2 Cavern of Souls because it's still a multicolor land. I'd still turn the Lightning Bolt into Path to Exile. With this economy of like Kroxa and Uro and all this other stuff, I would still play. I think there are more creatures that you can kill or permanently kill through Aluris with Path to Exile, and the fact that you have Celestial Purge in the sideboard is just going to make those matchups even better. And when we looked at the matchups, those were definitely the matchups you have to beat. You have to beat those Lurrus decks. This might be evil, but I think it should have some number of Lurrus in the main board. That's an interesting suggestion because that is a cat nightmare. Did Wizards craft it like that? That there could be this cat tribal deck with Lurrus? It's not the most insane thing anyway, because you could bring back so many of these 1-drops. I don't know what we removed because the only problem is like there's so many 3-mana ones already. Like I like Feline Sovereign. Other cats you control get +1/+1. Have protection from dogs. Whenever one or more cats you control deal combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Also, yeah, I forgot. Because of this ability, we may not need Kasali Pride Mage as much because we have this ability attached, and this is that's pretty sick. That's pretty strong. RIP all artifacts and enchantments. Lurrus really is a nightmare. Is Kahira that much better than Lurrus in this deck, in the main deck? Well, it's a Lord. It's a pretty good Lord. And also gives Vigilance to your cards. +1/+1 Vigilance is pretty good. I mean, you could have both, maybe. Like, that was the argument. We could have both. Maybe instead of Brimaz, and maybe instead of a King of the Pride, maybe we should have... Well, I think there should be a certain number of Lords. So this can be a Lord, this can be a Lord... Maybe instead of a Brimaz and one of the King of the Prides, you have 2 Lurruses. And you start bringing back creatures from the graveyard. That's totally fine. But I don't like, you know what? King of the Pride, Very weak to Lava Dart, but still hits for tons of damage. I mean, that is a big... If, for all I know, this is an amazing Lord. So if this Lord is not that amazing, maybe scrap it for something better. Because, like, look at this. I like this Lord. 2/3 creature, very resistant to a lot of removal. Resistant to, like, Seal of Fire, for example. Lava Dart, Firebolt, from the Izzet and the Monoraid decks, and even some Lurrus decks. So very resistant Lord to removal. I really like this one. This one very weak to every piece of removal in the format. Can't we just sideboard Kihira? We do. We have 3. This restriction lets you play with extra copies in the main deck. The whole deck just needs to have cats. So we have 3 in the main and 1 in the sideboard. So we are playing with a companion. The reason you see Lurrus decks having to choose either being a companion or not is because Lurrus itself says cards in your deck need to be CMC 2 or less, and Lurrus itself is a 3 CMC creature. So if you have Lurrus in the main deck, then you can't have Lurrus as a sideboard card or as a companion. Wait, why are we asking what creatures to remove? Oh, you want to remove the lightning bolts? That's possible. It's possible to remove the lightning bolts for some number of Lurrus and fill in the cracks. Like I said, I would like to be less weak to Blood Moon. This deck is very weak to Blood Moon. You're a heavy white-green deck. I would like to have more forests, more plains, more fetch lands that can find specifically forests and plains, and a lot less of these shock lands. Like, I would want a very, very light red splash. Very light red splash for that Wild Nikachu. I do not think this Lightning Bolt is worth it. I do not think Lightning Bolt kills enough things in the format or meaningfully does anything. It's the best thing is just shoot the opponent in the face. Good morning, Salud and Chubby Meatball. Is anyone near me? Does anyone want to see? Does anyone want to see Salud? Okay, this is gonna be it for Decklist review. I'm gonna get Salud. 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 Say hi to everyone. We're gonna say goodbye to 2021. Salud for Coffee and MTG. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye. You were around in the early days of Coffee and MTG. There's Salud. Salud is sleeping. Doesn't like to sleep with me anymore. He like goes off. There's a little box on the kitchen table that he prefers. But anyway, here's Salud, everybody. So we're going to be streaming today. That's going to be it for Decklist review. Twitch.tv/Nikachu MTG. So if you want to watch my gameplay, we're going to be playing with some Dono decks, and also we're going to be playing with a, I would say, the champion deck of Coffee and MTG deck list review. We're going to be playing with J.K. Torborg's 4-color Adventure Shift deck. Easily, like one of the most unique, and I think one of the more successful decks that we've seen crafted on Coffee and MTG. And if you want, by the way, you're going to go? You're done? Say goodbye, Salud. Say goodbye to 2020. We're gonna go into 2021. There are gonna be more treats in 2021, and more boxes. More boxes you can sleep in. But here's the deal. If I didn't get your comments and questions, don't forget, we do this Mondays to Fridays, 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time here on YouTube, on both my YouTube channels and on my Facebook fan page. So just show up and you can be part of the conversation. And also, if you want to support the channel, I'm going to get a join button on YouTube. But outside of that, you can always support me on patreon.com/Nikachu MTG. And also, you get on Twitch. Subscribe to me on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Nikachu MTG. So that is it for today. We're going to say goodbye. We're going to say goodbye to 2020. And we're going to say hello to 2021. So for this has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master for Coffee and MTG. As usual, you keep brewing up that coffee, and we'll keep brewing up the magic. See you next time.